Hey, how's it going everyone? Here with something a little bit different, and yeah, right before you do have Monkey D. Luffy and Zorro? Yes, weird most of his name in English, but I understand why they changed it, but Zorro, that is his name, and yeah, anything else is just weird. But yeah, anyway, I do have these two figures here. Actually, I haven't bought them yet. I've got a few mates that are really into One Piece, and they have the figures. Actually, I've never been a big fan of One Piece. I could never get into it back in the day, but slow, the art style, nothing just really caught for me. But that live action, damn, that series was good. Really enjoyed it. I went through it straight away with a wife. We both really enjoyed it. I've seen the figures, obviously in the showroom. And yeah, so anyway, long story short, saw the drama, curious to see what happened next, binged all the manga. And yeah, I've seen these figures around. I thought they looked really cool. They didn't look quite as good as, say, some of the Naruto figures or Jujutsu Kaisen, but overall, yeah, they look pretty nice. But then, man, I saw those comments online. Ooh, harsh comments. People don't really like these, do they? A lot of issues. But one thing that kept sticking out to me was saying, can't get him to this pose, can't do this. And I found that it was a little bit strange. I've played around with my friends once. Had a wee look. I have seen that they can strike those poses. So yeah, so I've kind of been having a good play around. And yeah, I've been wanting to add in future videos on the channel for a while now. Mainly because a lot of releases come at the end of the month. That gives me quite a bit of time at the start. And I was wanting to do some more photo orientated ones. But another one that I have been thinking about was posing, and that's what this is, the very first kind of posing, not really tutorial per se, but taking a character and, you know, like we've got Zorro and Luffy here, and we'll try and get them into a signature move or pose for them, something that maybe people have been struggling with, and at least try and show how to do it, and yeah, hopefully it will help. But one thing I have definitely noticed over the last few months, I've been really trying hard to improve my posing because it's something that I struggle with a lot. I often look at other people online, see what they're doing, you know, take inspiration, check out the official images. Tamashii have released some really cool posing guides as well over the last couple of years, so all that reference material, take a look at it and try to, you know, play with it here and there to try and get as close as possible. But I definitely have noticed some figures are super easy. Naruto, for example, so easy. Yuji, really simple to get into poses, very beginner friendly. And then other figures I feel come more on the difficult side, and I think that Zorro here, he's not fun to pose. He can get those poses, but for someone who's maybe new to collecting or who just wants that instant you know, gratification for him, get him into a pose, he isn't that type of figure. Luffy is kind of more the in between. He can get those poses, takes a little bit more time. So yeah, we'll start off with Luffy. And the main pose that we'll be starting with is probably going to be the Gear2, because a lot of people have been really struggling with that one. But you can actually get it, or at least, you know, pretty close to it. Okay, so I've just googled Luffy Gear2 pose, and this is one that we'll go for, that standing one with the fist touching the ground, the legs out, and maybe the hand on the knee, with the head looking down as well. So that's what we'll aim for first. I've got a feeling this one isn't going to be realistic due to the figure, in terms of, you know, being able to touch the ground, and the shoulder's quite high, and then the neck articulation of figures generally will limit that. But I think this one should be at least pretty possible to do. So we'll jump in and start doing that one there first. Now this is the first time I've done this in terms of kind of posing on camera. So please do let me know in the comments how it goes, and you know, maybe some changes that you'd like to see in the future for videos like this, and especially what characters you'd like to see and pose. But yeah, so starting off with, at least with Luffy here, the main thing that we want to do is just kind of move this left arm out of the way. Now the head we will be changing to the hair one, which we can do a little bit later. We'll leave this one on just for now. Okay, so this one here, he'll be punching the ground, and when you do that, try and think about if you're doing it in real life, you'll be leaning forward with that one. So this one will twist around, and you want that arm to come out straight, and then the head will be looking down that way as well. We can move the satchel or the sash from its belt up and out of the way as well. So now we have the upper body somewhat in the right direction, and we can check the sample image again and we can see the legs come straight out and down. So that will be the next part to do. So for the legs as well, we can kind of spread them out. And for this one here, he needs to be twisted around, right? So he can be touching the ground. So we can kind of twist these up and around, and the knees come down. So I think a lot of people kind of get into this, position, and you see, yeah, he definitely can't, he can't make the pose at all if you stick like this. But if you keep playing around and think about it, okay, he has to be punching the ground, so therefore the legs can twist around like so. And now you have the legs and fist basically in the same plane, and we should be able to basically get it quite close to the pose at least. Now the belt is still a little bit in the way, so we can kind of swivel this around a little bit more if we can. Actually, that is attached, so I think it's going to be the best we can do, having it flowing up like so. The fist and the arm we can pull out and stretch down, and then the legs we can kind of spread out a little bit more to kind of get the bit more of a leg spread look. The ankles as well, we can kind of twist these to face in a little bit as well. And then we can just twist the arm around and bring it down to touch the top of its leg there, like so. And then, we should be getting a lot closer. We can kind of put them down on the ground now, and we can get a closer look. And then we can adjust from here. So one thing you might notice in the images is the back has more of a curve. So you can kind of curve it up if you want to kind of have it looking up a little bit higher, but that will bring the fist further away from the ground, which is a little bit harder. So you can kind of bend him forward, since he does have some nice midsection articulation in the stomach there, and that will definitely allow him to touch the ground easier if you are struggling with that point. Same with the legs, you can always spread the legs out a little bit further and then just adjust the ankles ever so slightly. But one thing to keep in mind, if you angle him like so, his foot's looking forward, but his knee's going in the other direction, which looks very strange. No one's really that flexible. So keep in mind the direction that you have your joints facing as well, and then try to adjust as required with just angling in, maybe moving this in just ever so slightly more. Basically at this point it's all about those minute movements to get it looking a little bit more natural. This one's looking okay-ish, not the best, but it's slowly getting there. So one thing that we can do now to match up with that pose there is change the hand and the head. Okay, so I switched out the head and the hand, and overall it's not too bad. Is it 100% accurate to the the images that we have here? No, I mean here the legs are a bit more bent, maybe its ass is down a little bit lower, but the only thing it's missing is the hat. So we can place this on the top, but blue tack, just the good old sticky stuff for putting on your poster, just chuck some on there, slot it on like so, and now he has his hat on the back to tie in the pose. Now Luffy does come with one additional piece of hair, where is it? This one, which will go over the neck peg, and that is to fill in the gap at the back. For this pose I have left it off, that way you can kind of play around a little bit. So yeah, overall, for people who are saying that he cannot strike this pose, I think this is a pretty good attempt at it. I think if you're probably better at posing than me, you should be able to get it looking even better. But yeah, add in a smoke effect, and you've got yourself a pretty cool photo. Now some angles won't look as good as others. Even from the back, to be honest, it isn't too bad. The way the clothes fly up looks pretty cool. It looks like this is being thrown up by all the steam coming off as well. And overall, I think that looks pretty good. Let me know in the comments what you think. And overall, pretty straightforward and simple to do. You just have to spend a little bit more time, adjust those joints, each individual one, just a little bit, to try and get the natural look going on. So yeah, that is the first pose for Luffy. I think we can switch over and do one for Zorro now. Actually, before we do jump over to Zorro, there is the other pose where he is kind of looking up a bit more, and you can kind of see his chest as well. So for this one here, since he can't be looking straight down, we want to be able to see the chest. But when we check out this image here, you can see he is on more of an angle. That's why we can see the chest. So if we have a look at this, we need to twist him around a little bit. That way he can be looking up a little bit more. Probably can't look up as high as the image, but hopefully he can get pretty close. The arm will go back like so. And for this one, I think we need to spread the legs out a little bit more, because now by twisting this up and around this way and trying to get him to look up by arching his back, this is further away from the ground. So to compensate, we'll spread the legs out so he is a little bit more stretched. And so far, not really there. The main goal is to get these feet flat while looking natural. So let's see what we can do. Maybe twist it around a little bit. Maybe we can just lift his feet up a little bit off the sandals. This one's definitely a lot harder. Oh, he popped off. We can put that on in a moment. Let's try to get him there. Okay, so this leg is maybe up a little bit high, so we can try to spread that out a little bit. Let's see how that goes. Getting there. It's not too bad, but I think maybe we can twist this leg a little bit on the joint there. And go like so. Twist this one a little bit more as well. So yeah, this one is definitely a lot harder to do and maybe not quite as realistic. And this one could work really well if you have a diorama and maybe a little bit more of a rock there. But what we can do, we can kind of lean them forward like so. This one isn't too bad. It's definitely not quite as accurate as the image would lead you to believe, but we'll twist the arm back. And you know, so far, that isn't too bad. We can see the chest like we did in the image. The feet are, for the most part, flat on the ground and not too unrealistically bent. Just a little bit here. It's not too bad, and depending on the angle, it doesn't look too unnatural. And we can twist this around a little bit more if needed. That's one good thing. Actually, the feet on this actually works pretty good. It does give you a nice range, which is good. But yeah, we can slot the head back in now. Same as before, I don't have the extra neck piece on because it will hinder the articulation a little bit. And we can kind of ever so subtly twist that head up. So you can kind of see his face, you can see the scar as well. This one is definitely a bit harder than the other pose. We can take the hat with the blue tack again and just stick it on the back there. Actually, I need to go back a little bit further. And yeah, oh, head's popping off slightly. Yeah, this is one issue here with the head, the peg, maybe a little bit shorter. But if you really want to get him looking up a bit more, it's not really accurate for what you can do. But the cheat mode, you can, actually that's a bit too much. If it's just for a photo or something along those lines, you can take some blue tack and then you can use that to stick it on to get him looking up further like so. It's a cheats mode, but if you really want a photo with him looking up higher, that is one way to do it. But in this case, we want the pose as close as possible from just the figure. So we slot the head back on and lift up the neck, and you can kind of get it there, especially if you look out onto the side slightly. So yeah, overall, you know, not too bad. Let's get the sample image again. Compared to the sample image, he's definitely a lot more, the legs are spread right out. He doesn't have that, you know, kind of classic look that he does have in this pose. So that is the trade-off. So this one here, not so good. I feel like this one, it's maybe at 80%, 90% in there, whereas this one's maybe about 60%. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. But I feel like compared to some of the comments that you're seeing online where people saying it's not possible, and you know, he's still standing up completely. Compared to those, yeah, I think this is pretty good. It would be really cool to see maybe an updated Luffy in the future with crazy articulation, maybe soft rubber parts that will allow him to bend around, and maybe longer arms as well. Yeah, I mean, he's made of rubber. He stretches his size all the time in the series, so having some extra longer parts or shorter parts here and there to mix and match to get these poses, Yeah, it actually works with this character, so it'd be quite cool to see. But yeah, anyway, the base figure out of the box like so, you can still get those iconic poses even if it is slightly adjusted. Okay, moving over to Zorro now. I've already got him semi set up. We have the bandana head on, so that means I have switched out the arm part as well. If you are unfamiliar with this release, he has the base head as well, and then, where is it? Here we go. He has the upper arm part with the bandana wrapped around. So it is really nice how you can switch them around. The one thing that you probably have seen a lot of people complain about is the fact that his arm comes off easily. So if you move it around, like overall, so far not too bad, but if you put pressure on there, or try and push the arm and the shoulder part independently, you can pop it off. Now why is that? Well, it's designed to come off. You take it off, you switch out the lower or the upper arm part like so, switch it back in, and then slot it back into the joint. It's designed to come off and on easily so you can switch it. So it makes sense that if you put pressure in the wrong way, it will come off. Now the bonus of it being easy to take on off means less likely to break. The downside, it comes off easily. So you may knock it off if you don't mean to. Can be a little bit frustrating, but at the end of the day, once you have it in position, it holds on, it stays on. So I feel like the complaints about this arm very exaggerated. I don't really feel like it's an issue with the figure. It's a bit like the recent Future Trunks figure with the lower legs. When you shake it, those legs would move, but when you pose it and place it, you don't have any issue. At least for me, I don't really consider those big issues, or at least it's not something to lose sleep over. So yeah, I mean, definitely let me know in the comments what you think, but overall, I don't really consider the arm to be an issue with this figure. And just, yeah, for one point, I think this figure looks beautiful. The detailing is really nice, all the sword, all the colour separation. I think the faces look really good as well. And then the individual katanas that he has, I don't remember the names for these, but you have the colouring and the definition and all the design going down each of the blades as well. So all the detailing and design for this figure, I think is really nice. Now, coming into the downside, and that's what we'll be kind of covering with the pose, and that is the lower half. It is thick rubber, so I'll pop the chest off in a moment so you can get a closer look. But a lot of people try and pose this and they can't really spread the legs out. So the pose that we're going to do with Zorro here is legs spread, maybe bent over a little bit, holding the swords ready to attack. So we do have the belt here which will move. So we do have a few points here. One thing I will, I guess, point out first, the belt and the katana sheaths, you have to make sure you have them attached correctly. I have seen quite a few photos around of people posing it where this isn't connected correctly, and that will hinder the articulation a little bit, or at least make it a little bit harder because it will tighten everything up. So the first point of action is to get this on correctly. Now to do so, basically the top part here will pop off easily. So it can dismantle like so, which is actually a good thing because it makes putting the katana sheath in a lot easier. So we pop off the belt, and then in here, you might be able to see, we have the slot here for a white peg from the white sheath that will pop in, and then part of the red one will attach to a purple, and this will lock it in place like so. It can come out and easily. The first time, or maybe the first 2 or 3 times when attached it, it can be very tight. So what I recommend doing, warming up the plastic helps, stretching it, pushing it a little bit, just to loosen it up. And once you've done that, then you can easily attach the sheath again. This is definitely a figure where the first time you use it, it's pretty frustrating, I'm not going to lie. But once you get used to it, once you've loosened up the plastic a little bit, you can definitely attach it easily. Now if you are really struggling, just get out of a good old hairdryer. Now you don't want to get too close, you don't want to get too hot, but just warm up a little bit and that will soften the plastic. One alternative is to get a bowl of hot water. You should be able to put your finger in it without burning, but just higher than lukewarm, less than boiling definitely, just at a point where it's pretty hot, and it will just soften everything up. And the same can be applied to the lower half as well. So if you don't have this figure yet, or if you do and you have been struggling, I'm sure you already know, but you have two parts to the lower body. And understanding the way that the lower body move will help as well. So going back, we do have decent range of articulation. Going forward, not bad, but it will get hindered by the V shape here. So you do have to remember how far you can push it, forward and back. He can do the splits really well, but what we'll see in a moment is there is actually a limit there. So let's slot this back on and we can have a look at that. Now when both are on, you can easily see the peg up here, and obviously this will slot in and the belt goes around. So when we start spreading the legs, the two bits of plastic will overlap and then they will start raising up. And the further you spread out, the more it goes up and the less the peg will appear. And if you push too far, and if this plastic is still a bit hard, what this will do, it'll push this up as well. It'll put pressure on the body and this will pop right off that peg. So one thing to do, at the moment this one is definitely a little bit softer. Warm it up, soften it, stretch it, just massage it a little bit. You'll kind of get a little bit more motion out of it. Some people have cut it. I don't recommend that personally unless you're buying a second one. Reason being, once you've cut this, you'll be introducing a weak point, so when you move it, you can introduce tears and rips easily. And the main point that will hinder it is on the side here, because it is kind of molded in the corner and it's a little bit harder to move. So when we put it on, stretch it up, I kind of just push it down a little bit and you can kind of start stretching out the legs a lot further than what you normally can. The other point to keep in mind is when you have it on there, twist the leg, you make use of that upper thigh swivel. You also have the boot which will move as well. Now depending on the angle, it won't look nice, but often it will be covered by the trench coat. So even if it does look weird, it will be covered, so you probably won't even notice. Even if the leg is facing that way and the knee is going that way, it's unnatural, but it's covered, so you can't really tell. So make use of the fact that parts are covered to be able to get those poses. And same with the ankle. He does have good range, though you do have to be a bit more careful that it doesn't look really awkward, weird or broken. So we've checked out the lower half, and before we put them back together, I do want to highlight the top part of articulation. He has a rubber jacket that goes all the way around. There is a split in the back, so we do get some motion there. One thing to be careful of, if you put too much articulation in that lower half, it will be a bit harder to reattach to the body. So you kind of have to have this in the center of the black part. Yeah, so he has a decent range of motion, but a bit more limited once it is attached to a body. But if you do want to move it, you can kind of see there's a few millimeters of motion in the torso, and you can stretch it back and forward and kind of twist it around a little bit. The twisting motion is definitely a bit harder, and when he's on the body, or at least the lower half, can be really hard to do. So sometimes it can be a little bit easier to kind of pose and get into the right position when he's off the lower half. Now I will agree, compared to most figures, not the most ideal thing. Generally you want to be posing while it is fully attached, but sometimes with some figures you have to work around their limitations. In this case, not the easiest figure to pose. He can definitely get the poses, but I feel like he's a bit more advanced, and if you're new to collecting these figures, or if you're used to something like Yuji, Goku, or even Naruto, definitely will be a lot harder to get this guy in the pose straight away. Patience. He's a frustrating figure, so you need a lot of patience to be able to get him into the pose you want. But anyway, enough of that. Let's put him back together. Actually, first off, you can kind of get a pose without everything on first. So I'm thinking, have him standing up here, kind of leg spread, maybe this one a bit more angled out like so. I know this I'm holding one sword out front like so, this one maybe back and around, and then we'll have one in the mouth. Something like this we'll try first, and maybe then we can kind of spread out the legs a little bit more if required. But the main trick now is be able to get a pose like this with the restricting trench coat on it, because a lot of people they've been posting photos, he's more with his legs a lot closer. So that is the goal. So yeah, let's put him back together and we can start working him out to that pose. Alright, so let's pop that torso off again. We're going to start sliding on the lower half of the trench coat, and already we kind of know the rough posing that we want. And then we can take the belt with sheath, just line it up. Take the upper half, I'm going to get that peg visible, line it up, and it should be able to just slot in like so. Now he is reattached. So the next step is, when he's stepping forward, you want to try and think about how you're actually doing it. So instead of looking straight, the upper torso should be slightly twisted around to the left, and with this leg is his forward leg, which should be sticking out. His right leg then will be sticking out to the side, and then that will be the supporting one, which should be bent up. So yeah, this finger, as you just noticed, you can easily knock off parts. Ones like this, which are in the way, you can just take them off, leave them off to the side. Hell, the arm, you don't need it, take it off. It's just in the way, and you might just knock it off. The point that we want to focus on now is the lower half, and then we'll work our way up. So we've kind of got the torso looking over, and now it is the legs. And this is where the restricting lower half will get in the way, but you can push, you can mold it, you can move it out of the way. It's thick, but it is pretty strong, a lot stronger than what you would expect. Now the first big tip I have for Zorro here, I found posing him with his feet flat on the ground is easier. Often some figures maybe posing the hand, you kind of look in the sky. For a lot of figures, maybe pose in your hand, look at it, you say, yeah, that's right, put it down, stand, yeah, that's cool, and you adjust. For Zorro here, due to the way his legs are with his coat, I definitely find it easier with him standing. So you can kind of move this out of the way, and for this guy, we really want to stretch out the legs, and this one I'm putting a bit more pressure on the top part here to try to stop this from pushing up and popping off the top half. When you're first starting out and you're really trying to pose them, you may push too hard and you may make the top pop off. So what? Take it, pop it back on, try again. Practice. It's these little small things for this figure that will take time. You can kind of get used to it. This one here I haven't been that scared with. Just like really kind of push it and try and get him into the right pose. So we want the knees slightly bent. The other leg here. See, I just pulled it off. Don't worry. This one here, a little bit of force on this one works well. So just line it back up, slot it back in like so, fold that down, and there we go. So far, we got this spread out quite far. Got that leg, we've got a nice angle going down, like it's got some weight going on it. The front leg is facing forward. We kind of get a bit of a curve going down. At this point, if I push too far, it's going to make it pop off. So I want to push down a little bit and forward and just try to pivot the inside. I don't want the lower part, I want the upper part of the body to move. Now we can get the face looking forward, and now I want them facing over that knee. So the knee is here, and I'm just going to slightly use the upper thigh swivel to swivel up, and then a little bit of a bend in the knee to go forward. Now once it's covered, you can't really see too much, but I think overall that's not looking too bad. The legs are definitely split quite far, and at this point he may be a bit unbalanced, so you need to just put a bit of weight on one foot and subtly adjust the pivot on each of those ankle joints. And yeah, so far not too bad. I think at this point we should start putting the swords on, so we can try and get the arms in the right spot, and then from there we can adjust the way that his torso is facing. Now I don't remember what sword goes where, purple on the right arm. Okay, easy, we can do that. We have a purple sword here. Let's slot it in like so. And then, how do we want it? Maybe like that. Okay, now we want to reattach the arm. Slot in the other sword. Maybe have it forward like, I don't know, just kind of making this up as I go at the moment. And then the next sword, this one goes in his mouth with the blade facing forward and it just slots in. So yeah, the sword in the mouth one works really well, super easy. Yeah, this is super basic. So we also have to reattach the, other part of his belt, and yeah, you know what? Not too bad. The legs could be spread out a little bit further, and we can probably get this in a bit more of a nicer pose. Maybe have him, oh, see, push too far forward without pushing down, and that made the top part pop off. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, you do have to be a bit careful, but you can just realign it, attach it back in, and I'll push forward while pushing down to keep it in, and then that will move the plastic, or at least the rubber part, a little bit more. Not sure exactly what type of pose you want to go for. Maybe this arm back a little bit further. That one up like so. Yeah. And now I think if we can stretch out the legs a little bit more. So I'm just pushing on the top part just like before, and at the same time spreading the legs out. And yeah, we are kind of getting there a little bit further. I want more of a bend in that knee. So again, just pushing down and pulling out at the same time, and just making sure we make use of the ankle articulation. So yeah, I think considering the restrictions that this figure has, I think that's pretty good. His knees are out way further than his shoulder, so we have a decent range of motion there, while maintaining the look in the trench coat without any changes to it. And yeah, overall I'm pretty satisfied with this pose. I mean, a few tweaks here and there, I think it could definitely get a bit better. So definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. Now maybe we want to try something a bit different. We can maybe swivel this up and around. Slide it back in and angle the wrist up and over, and the elbow as well. So again, I'm just bending the hand down, and then I can swivel it around to get the wrist peg facing the right direction, and that way we can get a bit more of a angle on the wrist there. Now this is popping off because I'm putting pressure on the part that comes off, and I'm slotting off, which in turn is reducing the amount of peg that's visible. So I just need to push it back in, and we can just slot that back on like so. Now in this position, it is definitely a bit looser on the upper arm there, so just keep that in mind. But you can kind of get the arm up and over without too much trouble. I think it kind of looks better with the arm out though. This is something that I recommend having a good play around with. Maybe adjusting the angle there. Yeah, this one here is definitely fiddly, because this figure has lots of small parts which can come on and off easily, and you just have to play around with each individual part, adjusting the angle to kind of get it to where you want. But let's switch this back to how we had it, so it was looking decently good. Okay, let's go with this for now. Okay, so we have Luffy and Zorro here on the turntable swinging around, and you can probably see straight away on Zorro on the back of this pose, when you spread out his legs out that far and adjust the angle, the back part doesn't look as good. That's the case with a lot of poses. From some angles they look awesome, others they look bad. But for this one here, from the front side, I think it's looking pretty cool. I think maybe if you play around a bit longer, you could probably definitely get them looking a little bit better. That's one thing with a lot of the poses. Sometimes it can look a little bit off. Just adjust one point of articulation a little bit, maybe a twist here, a turn there, and it's all those little minute changes that will definitely lead to more natural and better looking poses. But the two main things I wanted to highlight from this video is that despite all the criticism online, and these are not the perfect figure release that everyone was looking for, but despite that, you can still strike the Gear 2 pose with Luffy. You can spread Zorro's legs like you want. I mean, the design choice for the thick rubber, probably not the brightest decision, especially when you've got the fantastic releases like Gear2. But does it make this a horrible release? I mean, I think it's still a solid release. The design is super clean, all the detailing is amazing, and overall the articulation is pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. Same for Luffy here. I think overall the articulation is pretty good. Some points hinder his articulation, but for the most part he can strike the poses he's known for. He could definitely do the Gear 2 one better, but it's also not horrible. Depending on the angle you look at, it can look really good. So my main takeaway from this video is don't always listen to what you read online. Play around and try for yourself, because despite the negative feedback online, I think these figures, yeah, the articulation is pretty good. You can get some cool poses from them. I'm hoping these little bit tips I've given will help you to pose these figures how you want, and same for any release. It's just taking each of the points of articulation, adjusting them slightly, and then looking at what you've done and think about what could be done better. Look at some resource materials, compare, see which way the body's facing, their feet, and so forth. Like for now, I definitely feel like this foot on Zorro is looking weird. I'd adjust that a little bit more to get a bit more of a natural look. You know, you can play around a lot to try and get them looking better. But yeah, anyway, this is the first of hopefully more posing videos where I'll take 1 or 2 characters and just put them into one pose each. If you like this video or this format, please do drop a whole bunch of feedback in the comments below so I can improve this going forward. I feel like I've rambled on quite a bit more than what I'd like in this video. So maybe in the future ones I'll try and keep it a bit more concise, or maybe I didn't highlight enough points in this video. So let me know so we can improve going forward, because if you find this fun, I'm happy to do more, because I think it's quite fun to do as well. It's always good to practice posing. There's one thing that is great about articulated figures these days, whether it's Figuarts or Figma or you know, the what was it, the Mafex ones and stuff. I'm looking forward to getting some amazing Yamaguchi. Got my eye out on those railgun ones. But yeah, you know, it's one of those things. Takes practice. I know a lot of my earlier poses pretty bad. If I look at the photos I've put up on Rockchala, I was like, I really should retake those because they look bad. But you know what? Practice, and each time you get a little bit better, and I think that's fun. But yeah, before we do wrap up, I want to say I'll use this hashtag. If you've got these figures, take a photo, update your pose, chuck a photo on Instagram or even Twitter, and use the hashtag SmashThatFigPose. I'll chuck up on the screen in the description below. And yeah, let's just all improve together. I think it'd be a really fun activity to do. Maybe you don't have these figures, take something else, make a pose, ask for feedback. So many talented people out there who are so good at posing. So yeah, let's share the love, help each other out, and let's improve our posing game, and then hopefully maybe we can improve the community a little bit, remove some of that hateful negativity that is out there, and it's way too rampant in this you know, collecting community lately. So yeah, that basically wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do like and leave a comment below, as I mentioned earlier, for some feedback so we can improve future iterations of this format. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, cheers!